All right. So are you ready to unlock those secrets from Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction?
Let's dive in.
We've got a deep dive prepared for you today, all based on a summary and analysis that focuses on the practical side of Greene's ideas.
Yeah.
Think of us as your shortcut to understanding the how-to without getting bogged down in all the moral debates.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Greene approaches seduction like a game of strategy.
Right.
Complete with its own set of rules and tactics.
Okay, so no judgment here, but have you ever felt like someone was playing you?
Oh, yeah.
Like they were pushing your buttons in just the right way to get what they wanted. That's the kind of thing Greene dissects in this book.
For sure. Greene starts by introducing these different seducer personalities.
Okay.
Archetypes, like the siren, the rake, and the ideal lover.
Yeah, right.
He argues that these archetypes tap into our deepest desires and fantasies.
Okay.
For instance, the siren embodies this longing for the unattainable.
Think Cleopatra, Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
They're magnetic.
For sure.
You're drawn to them.
Yeah.
But there's always a sense of mystery.
Absolutely.
Greene suggests that sirens are masters of creating this aura of intrigue.
Right.
They know how to use calculated aloofness to make themselves seem even more desirable.
It's interesting is that Greene isn't saying we all fit neatly into these categories.
Right.
It's more about recognizing patterns of behavior.
Yeah.
Both in ourselves and in others.
So true. Like, I've definitely known a few rakes in my time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's all about that rebellious charm, the thrill of the chase.
Right.
They make you work for their attention, which honestly can be kind of intoxicating.
Absolutely. The rake embodies a desire for excitement and freedom.
Right.
And by playing hard to get, they create a sense of scarcity, which, as we know, often makes something seem even more valuable.
Speaking of making something seem more valuable, Greene also dives into the power of creating an emotional roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
He argues that seducers are experts at this push-pull dynamic, keeping you off balance so you crave more.
Yeah.
It's like they're always dangling a carrot and then snatching it away.
It's a carefully orchestrated dance of giving attention and then withdrawing it, sparking desire and then creating a sense of longing.
Right.
This technique plays directly into something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that work?
So when a reward is unpredictable, it becomes much more addictive.
Okay.
Think about slot machines.
Uh-huh.
People keep pulling the lever because they never know when they're going to hit the jackpot.
Right.
The same principle applies to seduction.
Okay.
By being unpredictable, a seducer keeps you constantly guessing and coming back for more.
So it's not just about good looks and smooth talking. There's a whole psychological strategy at play.
Exactly. And language is one of the seducer's most potent weapons.
Okay.
Greene points out that it's not just about what you say, but how you say it and the images you evoke.
Right.
It's about planting ideas and desires.
He has this one line that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
The key to seduction is to stir the imagination, to create a world of fantasy that your target longs to enter.
That's a good one.
It's like painting a picture with words, a picture that they can't resist.
The power of language to influence and persuade is undeniable.
Right.
But of course, it raises some ethical questions as well.
For sure.
Is it ever okay to use language to manipulate someone?
Right.
Where do we draw the line between persuasion and coercion?
That's a whole other deep dive.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because Greene doesn't shy away from the potential for manipulation.
No, he doesn't.
He says these techniques can be powerful and dangerous in the wrong hands.
And he also makes a really intriguing point. He argues that these seduction techniques aren't limited to romantic relationships. They can be applied in all sorts of areas.
Like what?
Sales, politics, even friendships.
Wait, so you're telling me my friend who can talk their way into anything might be a master seducer?
Think about it. Politicians use charisma and persuasive language to win votes.
Okay.
Salespeople create a sense of urgency to encourage purchases.
Right.
Even in friendships, we often use charm and wit to win people over.
So in a way, we're all playing the seduction game to some extent.
Absolutely.
Whether we realize it or not.
And Greene's book gives us the tools to understand how this game is played.
Wow. All right. It's a lot to unpack. We've covered seduction archetypes, the emotional roller coaster, the power of language, and the ethical implications.
For sure.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, Greene doesn't stop there.
Okay.
He lays out a step-by-step process for mastering the art of seduction.
Okay.
He calls it the 4 phases of seduction.
Sounds intense.
It is.
I'm ready. Let's dive into those phases. What's phase 1 all about?
Phase 1 is called separation stirring interest and desire.
Okay.
It's about piquing their curiosity, making them want to know more.
Okay.
You want to create a sense of mystery, an alluring aura,
right,
but without revealing too much.
That sounds like it takes some serious finesse. How do you even begin to do that?
Greene stresses the importance of choosing the right target.
Okay.
Not everyone is susceptible to the same charms.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use the same approach on someone who's shy and reserved as you would on someone who's outgoing and adventurous.
Right. So it's all about reading the room and tailoring your approach.
Precisely. You need to understand their needs, their insecurities, their desires.
Okay.
And then you can start planting those seeds of interest.
And what about first impressions?
Oh, yeah.
Those have to be crucial in this phase, right?
Absolutely. Greene emphasizes the importance of making a strong first impression. Yeah. Remember, you only get one chance.
Right.
You want to stand out from the crowd and present yourself in a way that sparks their curiosity.
It's making me think about those dating app profiles that are just like, I like to travel and try new things.
Right.
It's so generic.
Exactly. You need to be memorable. You need to give them something to latch onto.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be about being overtly charming or attractive.
Right.
Sometimes a touch of vulnerability or a hint of darkness can be even more intriguing.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works, but what about all the mixed signals people talk about? Is that part of phase 1 too?
Yes. The classic push and pull. This is where that emotional roller coaster we discussed earlier comes into play.
Right.
You want to alternate between hot and cold behavior, keeping them guessing.
It's like playing hard to get, but with a more calculated purpose.
Exactly.
You're not just trying to make them chase you.
Right.
You're trying to create an emotional response.
Right. You want to spark their desire and then create a sense of longing. And by being unpredictable, you keep them on their toes. They're never quite sure where they stand.
Right.
And that can be incredibly seductive.
What about phase 2? How do things escalate from there?
Phase 2 is called lead astray, creating pleasure and confusion.
Okay.
The aim here is to deepen the emotional impact and intensify the roller coaster of emotions.
Okay.
Remember the push and pull dynamic we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, it gets turned up a notch in phase 2.
So we're talking about taking things to the next level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to lead them further down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Okay.
This is where you start to really see the power of language in action.
Right.
Skilled seducers use words to evoke fantasies, tap into deep-seated desires, and create a sense of intimacy.
It's like weaving a spell with words, drawing them into a world that you've created.
Precisely. And this is where things can get ethically tricky.
Yeah.
Because you're playing with someone's emotions.
Right.
You're creating a sense of connection that might not be entirely genuine.
Right. I can see how that could cross the line into manipulation.
For sure.
But Greene doesn't seem too concerned about the ethics, does he?
Well, he acknowledges the potential for harm.
Okay.
But his focus is really on understanding how these techniques work, regardless of the ethical implications.
Right.
He leaves it up to the reader to decide how they want to use this knowledge.
Okay, so back to phase 2.
Yeah.
You mentioned evoking fantasies and creating intimacy.
Right.
But Greene also emphasizes the importance of mixing pleasure with pain.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
He's talking about introducing elements of uncertainty and tension.
Okay.
Think about a good thriller movie. It's not all sunshine and roses.
Right.
There are moments of suspense, moments of fear, moments where you're on the edge of your seat.
And those moments actually make the happy ending even more satisfying.
Exactly the same principle applies to seduction.
Okay.
By introducing a bit of tension and uncertainty, you make the experience more intense.
Right.
And dare I say it, addictive.
Yeah.
It's that whole idea of you always want what you can't have.
Right. So you're deliberately creating obstacles and challenges to make the reward seem even more valuable.
For sure.
It's kind of sneaky when you think about it.
It can be, but it's also incredibly effective.
Right?
Because humans are wired to crave certainty and resolution.
Yeah.
So when you introduce an element of doubt or uncertainty, it triggers a primal desire to resolve that tension.
I never thought about it that way, but it makes sense.
Now, this is where things get really interesting as we move into phase 3.
All right, I'm ready for phase 3. Bring on the drama.
Okay, Back to our deep dive into the art of seduction.
Right.
We've explored the first two phases of Greene's playbook.
Yeah.
Creating that initial spark and then turning up the heat with a carefully calculated emotional roller coaster.
But I have a feeling phase 3 is where things really get intense.
You're right about the phase 3 is called the precipice.
Okay.
And it's all about pushing boundaries, creating a sense of urgency, and taking things to the next level.
Okay, I'm getting some serious danger zone vibes here.
Yeah.
What kind of tactics are we talking about in this phase?
Think about daring adventures, unconventional encounters, even breaking social norms.
Okay.
The seducer wants to shake things up, create a sense of excitement that borders on disorientation.
So it's like you're pushing them out of their comfort zone and into a whole new world of experience, almost like a controlled free fall.
That's a great analogy. And language plays a key role in this phase as well.
Okay.
It becomes more vivid, more evocative, even symbolic.
Right.
Think poetry, metaphors, anything that stirs their emotions and imagination.
It's like you're casting a spell with your words, drawing them deeper and deeper into this web of intrigue.
Yes. And the seducer needs to be highly attuned to their target's responses, knowing when to push and when to pull back, creating a delicate balance between excitement and vulnerability.
So while you're whisking them away on this thrilling adventure, you're also deepening the emotional connection.
Exactly. It's a powerful combination.
Right.
You create a sense of trust and intimacy while simultaneously giving them a taste of something forbidden, something they can't resist.
This reminds me of something we touched on earlier, those seductive archetypes.
Yes.
Do those come into play more prominently in this phase?
Absolutely. In fact, Greene suggests that each archetype has its own unique way of approaching this phase.
Okay.
For example, the rake might use risk-taking and rebellion to create excitement, while the ideal lover might create a sense of shared destiny, a feeling that they were meant to be together.
That makes sense. So by the end of phase 3, the target is completely captivated, right? They're on the edge of surrender.
They've been led to a point of no return.
Okay.
Now it's time for the final act, phase 4.
All right, let's hear it. What's phase 4 all about?
Phase 4 is called moving in for the kill.
Okay.
It's the culmination of all the previous phases. The moment where the seducer solidifies their influence and secures their surrender.
Whoa. Moving in for the kill. Greene doesn't hold back, does he?
He's very direct in his language. Which can be a bit jarring, I know. But it reflects the strategic nature of this phase.
Okay.
The seducer has to be bold, decisive, and know exactly when to make their move.
So timing is everything in this phase.
Absolutely. The seducer needs to identify the optimal moment to seal the deal. They've been building up to this point, creating a sense of anticipation. And now they need to capitalize on that momentum.
Okay, but let's say you've perfectly executed the first 3 phases. How do you actually move in for the kill? What does that look like in practice?
First, Greene emphasizes the importance of deepening that emotional connection even further.
Okay.
You want to make yourself indispensable. By fulfilling their needs and desires, reinforcing that sense of dependency.
So it's about solidifying your position as the one they can't live without.
Yes.
You've become their everything.
Exactly. And at the same time, you want to create a sense of inevitability.
Okay.
Make it seem like surrendering to your seduction is the only logical outcome. It's like leading them down a path where there's only one destination.
Wow. It's pretty manipulative when you lay it all out like that.
It can be, yes. And that's why it's so important to be aware of these tactics. Because knowledge is power. Once you understand how seduction works, you can protect yourself from being manipulated. And you can also decide whether or not you want to use these techniques yourself.
That's a great point. This isn't just about understanding how to seduce someone. It's about understanding the dynamics of power and influence.
Exactly, because these principles apply to so much more than just romantic relationships. They can be found in the boardroom, in the political arena, in any situation where people are trying to persuade or influence others.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
The 4 phases of seduction, the seductive archetypes, the power of language,
the
ethical dilemmas.
For sure.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, this deep dive has been a crash course in the art of seduction.
It has.
But it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out Greene's book for a more in-depth exploration of these ideas.
Absolutely. And as you delve deeper into this fascinating and often unsettling world of seduction, consider this.
Okay.
Greene argues that seducers create a false sense of security to lower their target's defenses.
Right.
But in a world saturated with information and persuasion, how do we even know what's genuine anymore?